England, British, Britain that we say. Britain, the Great Britain, or England today that we find, India, like India, we Indians, British, all the French people, they belong to ancient, ancient lands. They have rich cultural history that that helps them, to build their literary field very strongly. That is something we have already know. We have already the knowledge. But when we talk about America, America before 1492 was not known to the world. When Columbus discovered America in 1492, America came to the eyes of the world as a land that exists in the earth, in the globe. So when America was identified, Columbus mistook it as India because he was supposed to reach India and he has to find out sea route to India. That is why Columbus thought that he had reached India, and the inhabitants of America at that time, he named them as Red Indians. According to their complexion, he named them Red Indians. So that is how we learned from history. America was discovered. You cannot say any other continent that we have in the globe has been discovered by somebody, some seamen like Columbus. Uh, then comes about, let's come to the point how Americans started to have their literature. So when Columbus discovered America and he found red Indians there as inhabitants, being very barbaric in nature, savage like persons living in western part of America, which was full of forests. The western side of America was full of forest, and these red Indians were living there. So that was a particular point of time. America was discovered, and it was named by Amerigo Vespucci, and again after that we got a continent, America. Later on, it became USA, United States of America. We are not going to discuss that. But after 1492 up to 1776, a very important incident took place in 1776. That is the American War of Independence. In 1776, America got independence. America was also a colony like India. India was a colony under British government, and America was also a colony under British government. And how British government has colonized America, that is something we must also have to throw some look to that point also. When America was discovered later on, pilgrims on pilgrimage, they went to the eastern side of America. Different settlements started to exist in the eastern part of America. I said the western part was full of forest. In the eastern part, a lot of settlements, 13 settlements started to exist. So these 13 settlements belong to different areas, different countries, like French settlement, Dutch settlement, Italian settlement, Spanish settlement. So we find these settlements belonging to different countries initially, but later on, those settlements came under the British government. Okay, British government was very much powerful at that time. You know, in the history, British has ruled means 70%, 80% of the world at that time. Anyhow, British government occupied those settlements, those 13 settlements. After British government occupied and started ruling those settlements, they named that New England. There was a New England in America. The name of America was not flourished that much, and they named it New England. And British government started ruling. But in 1776, America was free from British government and started to have their own democracy, their own government, their own policies, and they started making their own laws. So thereafter, we find literature flourishing in America, and now you know America in a position as the superpower in the world. Anyhow, so this is a brief history. We cannot discuss the entire history of America because it's though it's not very long, but still a lot of important incidents took place that we cannot discuss in such a brief time. Rather, we have to concentrate on other parts. Other parts coming in the first block we find in American literature. You have mm, uh, 9 blocks. We have 9 blocks in American literature. The first block is context of American literature. Second block is American fiction. Third block is American fiction 2. Fourth block is American prose. Fifth block is American poetry. Sixth block is American poetry 2. 7 is American short story. 8 American drama. And the 9, the last one is The Bluest Eye of Toni Morrison. So these are the 9 blocks that you have in American literature you have to go through. And the first one is about the history, how America started to concentrate on literature. Sometimes we say that American literature is partially British literature, or whatever literary outcomes we found in America is mostly influenced by the literary scenario of Britain. Okay, that is why we say partially British or English. We say the American literature is partially English literature. So when we talk about literature, Puritanism comes to the very beginning. Okay, Puritanism. So Puritanism is a concept that we find in England from 1600 to 1660. Puritan age, we say, Puritan age, the age of Milton, we say. It is called Puritan age or the age of Milton, 1600 to 1660 in England. I'm not talking about American literature. American literature came later, many years later, because America was introduced to the world in 1492. Okay, and the colonies started in 17th century. And after 17th century, in 18th century, towards the end of 18th century, 1776, America got independence. And after that, they have their own literature. So it is quite long. You can see from the timeline. So coming to Puritan age, the concept of Puritanism, it is very simple. If you have understood Puritanism in British literature, you can easily understand the Puritan Americans or Puritanism in America. In England, during Renaissance period, before Renaissance, you can say, during the reign of Henry VIII, father of Queen Elizabeth, Reformation took place. Reformation, Renaissance, Reformation, these are the key literary words related to British literature. You must have knowledge about that. So Reformation took place in England during the reign of Henry VIII. Henry VIII. What is Reformation? Reformation is simple. Reformation means reforming church, reforming Catholic Church. Church, or what we say, Christianity. Christianity was controlled by the Catholicism, Catholic clergymen. Catholic means the root was in Rome, Roman Catholicism, we say. So during Reformation, two groups of Christians, or we can say two different church we find. One is the Catholic and the other one is the Protestant. During Catholicism, Catholic clergymen did not allow the poor, the uneducated person to come to the church. The lower level, the lower class people are denied of religious ceremonies, religious activities. They cannot touch Bible. They cannot read. They cannot read even. Actually, they cannot read because they do not have the educational qualification. That is different. But at least they cannot touch. They cannot enter into the church. So Protestantism under Martin Luther, that Reformation was done, and the church was separated. Okay, that is a point to understand Puritanism. So when Reformation was over, we found two groups of Christians in Britain, or you can say in Europe. One is the Catholic, and the other is Protestant. Protestantism also developed. That was during Henry VIII. After Henry VIII came Queen Mary. His eldest daughter, Queen Mary, came, and Queen Mary, during her reign, Catholicism returned again. But when Elizabeth came, Queen Elizabeth, during the reign of Elizabeth, what happened? That Protestantism and Catholicism, they were together, they were present together. But means Elizabeth was a Protestant by nature, like her father Henry VIII. Anyhow, during Elizabeth, there was no turmoil in British areas, in British kingdoms, and everywhere you find peace and contentment. And because of that, due to no political turmoil, there was prosperity in literature. That is why we say that the reign of Elizabeth is the golden age of literature in England. So after Elizabeth came the the age of Puritanism, we say. The Puritanism came after Elizabeth. Okay. The Puritan age, I said, it is from 1600 to 1660. And in 1660, we know restoration was there. Restoration means restoration of monarchy. Charles II returned from France and he occupied the throne, and there was a different age started. That was the age of restoration. We say monarchy was restored. That is why that was called restoration. Okay, so that is different. We are not going to discuss that. But before restoration, after Elizabeth, Queen Elizabeth in 1603. Okay, after 1603, from 1603 to 1625 came James first. James first. Okay, from 1625 to 1649 came Charles first. Charles first was beheaded, and his son Charles II escaped to France, and he returned in 1660, and that was the restoration period. The writers, actually, the period before restoration, after Elizabeth is called the Puritan age. It is Puritan age because the age is named after Milton, John Milton, you know. As Milton was a Puritan, Milton was a Puritan, the age is called Puritan age, the Puritan age. Okay, this is very simple to understand Puritan age. So the point of discussion is who are the Puritans, how they are different from other religious people. From the name itself, you can know Puritan. They believes in purity. Okay, they followed the path of great Renaissance writers. Okay, there was the spirit of science. Okay, there were men like Newton, Bacon, Francis Bacon. They were also there. Okay, but still we find Puritan people. They are different. Okay, English language at that time was started being used as a medium of instruction. Okay, that was English language was popularized at that time. Okay, um, these Puritans, they believed in Renaissance. They followed the path of Renaissance writers, but still they are different. Okay, they are different. So when we talk about Puritans, Puritans were again they were they were they came under Charles first and James first, both. Okay, during this period, there was fighting between the Protestant and Catholicism. Protestants, they were different. Okay, they were lower class people. They do not have much idea about religion and the church, how to maintain church, how to maintain sanctity. All these things were different things that they do not have idea at all. But these people, the Puritans or the Puritan people, they separated themselves. They wanted that everything should be pious. Everything, those who love God, those who like God, or those who are Puritans, they have to be pure in all aspects. Okay, it is very important. Okay, the Puritans, they believed in everything uh, from from the religious point of view. Everything should be pure. Their day-to-day activities, they should be they should not they opposed Protestant concept of worshipping God and concentrating on God. Okay. So that is why it is different when we say Puritanism, American or British Puritanism. We believe that they are different and they do not get much attention in England. Like many Puritans, they left England as pilgrimage on pilgrimage to America. These Puritans, different categories of people, or you can say religious people, they left England and they went on pilgrimage to America and they settled there. And these Puritans, those who went from England to America, they started their settlement in America, and Puritanism went on. Puritanism continued in America. Okay, we find Richard Mather, John Cotton. They were the Puritans, dominant Puritan in America on Massachusetts Bay. Thomas Hooker, he is also an example of those who settled new areas farther west according to traditional Puritan standards. Okay. Even though he broke with the authorities of Massachusetts, he broke with the authorities, but still he wanted they demanded religious freedom. They wanted true Puritans in his jail person, in the doctrine of correctness, in the doctrine of purity. Okay, sanctity. They demanded that, and they were the important Puritans in America. Richard Mather, John Cotton, Thomas Hooker. These are the persons. Okay, so this is all about means briefly about Puritanism that went from England to America. Okay, I'm giving you little amount of um, mm, focus on Puritanism and other things. So now mm, the first block is about Puritanism. Context of American literature is the first block. In the first block, the first unit is about Puritanism, how Puritanism established in America, and how Puritanism started their literature, Puritan literature. And Puritan literature, when you talk about Puritan literature is about religion. Mostly the literature, they find religious tone in Puritan literature. Romance, love, this kind of things we do not find. Always you find Jesus Christ, Bible, biblical stories. Okay, you can have better example of Paradise Lost, John Milton. That is a Puritan text. So there you find biblical allusions are written in poetic form, nothing else. And if you talk about John Bunyan's uh, The Pilgrim's Progress, if you have read that book, that is also a Puritan text in which we find religious attitude of the author and talking about religion, Bible, biblical stories, how to fear God, what is the authority of God, how God can do everything, how God is capable of doing everything. So many things you will find that in Puritan literature we have seen. So this is Puritanism, Puritan American Puritanism. Now come to the periods of American literature. America became independent, and after that, when literature grew in America, we find different ages, different periods of literature. Though it is not equal to British literature or Indian literature, you cannot compare American literature to British literature because it is very old. But still, uh, it has certain periods like colonial period. The first period is colonial period. Colonial means in India also we find colonial literature when it was colonized. When England, British government was colonized, was the colonizer of America. The Americans were at that time colonized. Okay, so when they were colonized, they have different experiences, they have different kind of attitude, they have different kind of mentality. So accordingly they were suppressed, they have to pay a lot of revenue to the British government. They were exploited like Indians. So all these things were going on. So that period of literature is separated as colonial literature, in which you find colonial themes in those literature. That is colonial period. Next comes after colonial, post independence period. After colonial period comes post independence period. During this period, they were free, they have their own government, they have their own set of laws. So they were different. They freely they started writing. Not only their mind, their country became free from British clutch. Rather, their mind, their psychology, their perspective, their perceptions, everything changed after independence. They were completely free of the British clutch. So that is one point. After post-independent, we find this. And next, the third period is 19th century. 19th century American literature. This is a very crucial period in America because we know that in 19th century there was a uniqueness in America. Okay, they have a unique style in America. We find a unique style. That is why this age is very essential, very important. You will know later on that how American style have been um, introduced to the world literature. So this is one age, the third age. Next comes the late 19th century realistic fiction. This is also an American age. You can say the late 19th century realistic fiction. Okay, this is another age, and after that comes um, 20th century prose. This is another period. 20th century prose. After that comes post World War fiction. Post World War fiction. After 20th century prose, another period comes in American literature that is called post World War Second fiction. After Second World War, they have a particular age, a type of fiction introduced, the kind of devastation, loss, ambiguity, a lot of things, vagueness that came after the end of World War Second. That made a lot of fictions to be written, and that particular age has been separated. That is one different age. Then the last age is contemporary age. The last one is contemporary. Contemporary means what is going on now. So these are the important phases that you see, important periods of American literature. So now we will go to the important periods of American literature. Uh, all these seven periods cannot be discussed, but if you have any book on American history of American literature, you can go through that book in order to understand, because history of literature plays a very important role to understand literature, literary text. Without literature, history of literature, it's difficult, very difficult. It is meaningless, I can say, to understand, to read, to go through literary text. So when you have um, uh, in the first fiction part, in block 2, we have a novel, a Scarlet Letter. A novel is there. So when you learn that novel, when you go through the story of that novel, you will find how Puritanism has been there, how transcendentalism has been focused there, everything. So we'll discuss transcendentalism in brief also after this. Uh, that is also a concept. Romanticism, American romanticism is different. Romanticism came in England. You know, Romanticism came with the publication of lyrical ballads in 1798. Okay, when Wordsworth and Coleridge published the lyrical ballads, Romanticism started. We know that. Okay, and Romanticism has its own specifications by which it is different from the age of reason, from the classical age, the neoclassical age, Augustan age. It is different. So the same romantic aspects of literature also found in American field, American literary field. That is why we separate that particular portion as romantic, American romanticism. Okay, and that is in 19th century. Okay, before that, I was talking about um, um, transcendentalism. Okay, transcendentalism is a philosophical movement in late 1920s and 30s. Okay, in the 20th century, this transcendentalism took place, a literary movement, a philosophical movement in the early part of 20th century. Okay, what is transcendentalism? It believes in the inherent goodness, the internal goodness of people. Transcendentalism is just like humanism in the Renaissance period. If you have heard humanism believes in keeps the human at the center of everything. That is humanism. And transcendentalism also, in the same way, believes in the inherent goodness of the people and the nature also. So you will find transcendentalism as a mixture of that humanism kind of things with romanticism also. Romanticism came in 19th century, and after romanticism came transcendentalism. Transcendentalism says that a person's internal qualities, a person's inherent goodness is important. The inherent goodness of the nature is important. When society and culture had corrupted the purity of the individual, people wish to be self-oriented, self-sufficient, self-reliant. So society and culture in 20th century, we have heard, we have a lot of instances that people were very much corrupt in 20th century. They are deceptive in all their approaches to life. You cannot find people being very stuck to truthfulness, honesty, and loyalty. These terms became simply formality, meaningless, but they became corrupt. So you can see during the Second World War, whatever happened, that that can be easily avoided. All these things could not be happened, but that happened because of this corrupt attitude of the people. Okay. Anyhow, people during transcendentalism, the Americans believed that in order to be free from this corrupted people, corrupted society, they had they wanted a society. Okay, the purity has been polluted, the purity has been corrupted, so they wanted to be self-reliant. They wanted to focus on self dignity, self whatever you possess inside you, that is more important. Emphasizes this transcendentalism emphasizes subject, okay, subjectivity, subject intuition over objective empiricism. Okay, it is very important. It is the same as humanism also. Humanism believes in individualism. An individual is capable of doing everything. That is the concept of humanism in Renaissance period. Okay? In 17th century England, humanism flourished. So humanism said the same thing here also. We find in transcendentalism, we find subjectivity was given importance, individualism was given importance. Individual are competent of generating completely original insights. They said that an individual has the capability, he can or she can create anything. He or she can generate original insights. You should not have to copy. You cannot say that Americans can do, Indians cannot, or Britishers can do, Australian cannot. So it's not the same. Okay. Everybody has certain power, everybody has certain talents in inside them, so they are capable of doing certain things, that certain original things. They focused on originality. It originated from English and German romanticism. I said the root of this transcendentalism is uh, romanticism. Okay, romanticism is the root of transcendentalism. Okay, so it is English romanticism and um, German romanticism, from which this transcendentalism originated. It was also influenced by Upanishad, our Upanishad, the most important ethics of um, Hindus. Hindus text, we say Hindu text, Vedas and Upanishad, we know. So Upanishad also has had some influence on transcendentalism. So David Hume, Immanuel Kant, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Thoreau, okay, Margaret Fuller. These are some important figures of this movement, this transcendentalism. Okay, these are the important figures. 1 minute. I'm taking a break. 1 minute, please. Hmm. So this is transcendentalism in brief. So this is also very important. We have heard about we have heard about Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot, Eugene O'Neill, Robert Frost, the important figures in American literature. So when you study American literature, we find a lot of important writers, those who have changed the concept of literature all over all over the world. Okay. These writers, if you talk about Robert Frost, he's the best American poet. He's the best American poet, Robert Frost. Okay. And if you talk about um, T.S. Eliot, he is beyond comparison. You cannot compare T.S. Eliot with anybody. Okay, he has introduced a lot of critical theories. He has written the milestones of English literature. So, if you talk about T.S. Eliot, um, um, a lot of all of his works, they are the exemplary text of modern literature. After the First World War, after the First and Second, both the world wars, uh, literature changed. Literature has a different kind of theme. Literature was completely different. A lot of um, unique themes, unique structure of literature came, just like absurd drama, absurdity in literature. That is something that we find as a result of the as a result of world wars. Existentialism is a concept. Okay, absurdity in literature. You may have idea about absurd dramas, absurd plays. Okay, the fragmented literary structure. When we talk about literary structure, we find completely fragmented literary structure. After means World War, post World War, the novels, the dramas, the poems, they are very difficult to understand because they are full of illusions. They are full of intertextuality. They are fragmented by their structure. You find a lot of different texts being introduced in that text. So if you take for example T.S. Eliot, he has written a lot of uh, text. Okay. And in all of his texts, he have taken the allusions from even from Vedas, from Hindu texts. He has taken allusions from Shakespeare. He has taken allusion from Milton. So when it becomes elusive, it's difficult to understand. And to some extent, if you have read any modern writings, modern literature, like any modern poem, any modern drama, if you have read, if you have learnt modern dramas, particularly a Jew story, okay, Waiting for Godot, if you have read those dramas, you will find the uniqueness in the modern literature. And the modern literature is completely the contribution of American authors mostly. Later, when it came to England and other parts of the world, and this is how a lot of other we will come to know a lot of writers. Like in fiction, we have two fictions to Huckleberry Finn um, and the Scarlet Letter. Huckleberry Finn and the Scarlet Letter, and in poetry also, Walt Whitman. Uh, Whitman is there, and Emily Dickinson is there. Two poets. You have We have two blocks for poetry: Emily Dickinson, Walt Whitman, William Carlos William, Ezra Pound, Adrienne Rich, Wallace Stevens, Robert Frost. All these important poets will be covered. And in drama, we have Eugene O'Neill's the Hairy App. The Hairy App is a very famous and renowned drama. You will come across, you will read. And another, The Death of a Salesman, also. Okay. Toni Morrison is also at the end, in the last. So in fiction, we have Huckleberry Finn, and two fictions are there. Huckleberry Finn in block 3, and in block 2 we have a Scarlet Letter by Hawthorne. Two important because you have a separate separate book paper for American novels. So that is why fictions are not given much. Two fictions have been given. And in American prose, you have certain essays, certain articles by American prose writers. In American poetry, you have covered 7 to 8 important poets. In such story also, in such story we have also William Faulkner, okay, and Hemingway. So we have some such story writers also here. And drama also, we have two dramas. So this is um, completely a complete package of American literature. So if you go through American literature, if you have a book on American literature, history of American literature, you can better go through all the aspects of American literature. You will find a lot of interesting aspects of American literature. Um, from its from the point of view of its religion, its education, their politics, their socio-economic status, all the things, how in the background all these things they affected migration from different areas to America, how the migrants they started having their citizenship after America got independence in 1776. All these things together, how United States came into being, everything undergoes in the background. So the background is very much important, which will help you to understand the American uh, text. So we will start the uh, first fiction, that is A Scarlet Letter. It is a very important, interesting text. If you have any idea, it is good. If you do not have you have not come across this particular text, you if you have internet connection, you can search for A Scarlet Letter. You go through the summary at least. We'll discuss Scarlet Letter a day after tomorrow. So at least go through the summary. So if you go through the summary, you will find Scarlet Letter is very interesting. Okay, and how American society at that time, what was the canons of American society? What was the principles of American culture at that time? Who were the Americans at that time? And how was women treated? Okay, in the scarlet letter, the letter A is the center of the novel. The scarlet is a color. Scarlet is a red color. Red is also called scarlet. A little different, but scarlet is also red. A red color A is the center of the novel, of the fiction. So you go through the text, you can understand. Text is not possible. You go through the summary at least. You can understand the story, and we'll discuss after that. This is very important for you when you come to the class. You come at least with the summary in mind, so it will be interesting to discuss. Okay. So this is American literature in brief, the context of American literature, how Americans how America came into being as a continent. We know today America is a continent, North America, South America, and uh, in the initial stage, how red Indians were the Native Americans. We call them Native Americans today, and we have African Americans also. After the evolution of slavery system, the Negroes, those who were slaves in America, they became African Americans. So now we find all over the world, the people from all countries, they have got citizenship in America, and they were living there. So America is a mixture, has a mixing culture. You will find all the cultures existing there. Anyhow, the history says how America came to being, how Americans, today we say Americans, how they came, what kind of people we find in America. Mostly the British, the England people, the English Puritans, they took shelter in America when there was Puritanism in England. They went in search of peace, in search of purity. They went to America and they settled there, and Puritanism grew in America. And Puritans, English people were found there. How America was colonized for many years, and how America got independence, and after independence, how literature flourished, and what kind of contribution it has to uh, uh, English literature. American literature, we know that it is not very long like Indian or British literature, but still, the kind of contribution American literature had towards literature altogether is beyond comparison. You cannot compare that American literature is weak. Today, all the literary theories you are taking, you have MEG-5, a compulsory paper in which we find all the critical theories. If you go to that particular theory, any theory, you go to the proponent of the theory, the pioneers of the theory, you will find most of them are Americans. All the new theories that is coming out now, that is from America. Though America started to exist later, but the literature and the contribution to literature is quite incomparable. You cannot dare to compare. So in the 21st century, particularly in 20th century and 21st century, they have contributed the most. British literature is no more important today, though we are the students of English literature. We cannot say we are the student of British literature, but English literature does not mean only confined to England. English literature means literature of the world, literature written in English, not from England, not from America, not from Australia, not from South Africa, and not even from India. All over the world, literature written in English is called English literature, we know. And British literature once upon a time was given a lot of priority, but now if priority will be given, it should be given to American literature. And American literature is very important, very poignant, very modern, postmodern, you can say, very modern. And all the modern, postmodern aspects of literature, all the postmodern approaches to literature, themes, okay, the criticism, critical theories, everything that we find today, they are all originated from America. Or all the critics that you find, if you have heard critics of different, you are learning, you will come across a lot of critics, feminist, Marxist, and you will find the structuralist, post-structuralist, new historicism, colonialism, all the literary theories that you find. So you will find all the critics of these literary theories mostly are from America. So that is why America has the greatest contribution to literature at the present time, though not in the past. So this is all about American, briefly about American context of literature, and from the next class onward, we'll discuss on the Scarlet Letter. Okay, the Scarlet Letter, a novel, very interesting. You go through the summary at least, come with the story in your mind. It will be very interesting and you can enjoy. So, any of you have, if you have any queries, any questions, you can ask.
আপনার কিছু কোশ্চেন বাকি আছে আপনি কিছু করতে চাচ্ছেন না
If you have any question, you can ask.
No, sir.
sir many thanks to you
Even
many thanks
if
to
you
you
see the list of Nobel Prize winners, if you see the list of Nobel Prize winners, also you will find most of the Americans are winning Nobel Prize in literature. I'm not talking about science and other aspects of knowledge, only literature. If you talk about persons winning Nobel Prize in literature, you will find maximum from America. Okay, in the present time, not in the past. In the present time, from 19th century into the 21st century to the contemporary time, you will find mostly from America. Okay? And this is how you can say, you can know that how important it is to read the history of American literature. Okay, you have to go in detail. This is not possible, but I said certain points of American literature, history of American literature, but there are many things that remain untouched. We cannot touch within this framework of time. If you have history of American literature, will take at least 7 to 10 classes. Okay, one aspect will take 2 or 3 classes. I hope all of you have mentioned your names and roll numbers in the chat box. Okay, uh, it is recorded and your attendance will be counted as per your writing. So those who have joined, make sure you have mentioned, you have written down your names and enrollment number in the chat box. So it's all about American literary, American context of literature. Context means the background. Somehow you have certain idea about what is America, how America came into being, how literature developed, and now when we'll study a novel, you will find the Puritan concept, the transcendentalism concept, the romantic concept. So these will help you to understand things better, and you will face no problem. Those who have understood all these things. If you have any doubt, whatever we discussed, you can ask. You are free to ask. Those who are from those who have English honors in graduation, they can better understand, because during graduation all these things are clearly mentioned in the syllabus or in the books. you have enough time to go through all these things. Now, in one block only, you have total entire history of American literature, which is a very thick book. If you have seen British literature, you can imagine what kind of literary history of literature book will be in American literature. So that book cannot be covered in 45 minutes or 1 hour. It's very difficult. But anyhow, we touched that much, whatever will be required to understand the text. uh, So that is why uh, um, we discussed that. If you have any question, you can ask. Otherwise, we'll wind up. Next class on MEG-8 will begin after this. So we'll take no more time. We have to start again. Anyone, if have any queries, any question, please. Otherwise, we'll wind up. We'll stop. Should I stop?
So, nothing more to say, sir. We are very happy to know the brief
Okay.
knowledge
So
about the.
I'm going to stop and be prepared. Those who have MEG 8
Yes,
in
yes.
their option, and they can choose